Endless Legend, the sequel. Back when most people were playing Civilization 6, there was a competitor out in the world called Endless Legend, you may or may not remember. It was another 4X grand strategy based in a sci-fi universe, and it had always piqued my interest. I'd played Endless Dungeon, Endless Space, and they've both got sequels and remasters. And now it's time for Endless Legend to get one, so this is Endless Legend 2. Well, I've been gifted a key to jump in and try out the early access version, so now is as good a time to find out what this is all about. And if that sounds of interest to you, hang on to your pants while I jump in and poke around. I'm excited. This has been in the corner of my eye for quite some time now, so let's get stuck in. So, according to the developer, you must lead your people to victory on an ever-evolving world in this strategy game featuring asymmetric factions led by powerful heroes. Build your empire, wield political influence, and raise grand armies to wage war in a race to uncover dark secrets buried within the planet. Right off the bat, it's a beautiful looking game. Very reminiscent of any 4X grand strategy that you've ever played before. You've got familiar hex tiles and resources and cities and armies and battles and all that stuff. So knowing that they've got all of that covered off, my question is, does this really do anything new and is it worth my time? Well, I said a moment ago that I've played a lot of Civilization 6. I haven't played Civilization 7, so if you feel like there's a decent comparison between this and that, then feel free to sound off in the comments. But it all starts here on the factions page, and you get a variety of factions here, all kind of alien, and they are asymmetrical because I've played a couple of them, and they all have completely different play styles and different skills and all of that kind of stuff. But they're all basically aliens, apart from this one, obviously. And it basically starts as you would expect. You're thrown onto a map, kind of not knowing what anything is or where anything is, and you have to start by setting up or scouting out the area, choosing a location, setting up your city, and kicking it off in the traditional 4X strategy way. Like I said, it's really shiny and really pleasant to look at. And it's got a nice fog of war. You need a decent fog of war in a 4X, don't you? So here I am setting up my very first city, and I didn't know whether or not it was a good idea to go here or not, but it seemed like it had a decent spread of resources. And that's the standard kind of fare. You got food, technology, influence, and you've got money and everything else you would come to expect in that respect. Anybody familiar with the Endless Universe mythology? They use dust as currency. I don't know why, but they use dust. Everything else is pretty intuitive, really, and I did play through the tutorial, which was short, but also very helpful. And although all of the factions do have different skills and abilities, they all still function in mostly the same way. In essence, you're going to need to grow your population, which means you need to grow your city. And to do that, you're going to need to build districts. Districts are going to buff the different types of resources that you need. So if you want more food to grow your population, you'll need farming. If you want more industry, you'll need mines. You get how it works. Sitting behind all of this is the technology tree. There are multiple pages of this as you progress through the eras, and each tree is unique to the faction that you're playing as. But, and this is not a put down, they all function exactly as you would expect. If you want to have buffs to your farms, then you need to research the farms. If you want to have buffs to your industry, you need to research industry. You can't simply progress, however, to the next era until you've unlocked every industry within this era, and that plays an important role because eras are linked to global events that happen on the world map. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but the main thing to be aware of when managing your cities is your population. I liked this a lot because you were able to respec your city on a per turn basis. For example, if you felt like you weren't generating enough industry or enough money, in fact, then you can simply move the population from one area into another to get more out of it next turn. I went bankrupt a couple of times before I realised that I can actually move my population and start generating more money. Obviously there's some trade-offs in that, but I liked it because I felt like I could really focus on the type of progress that I wanted to make in the development of the cities. So here you can see I'm trying to balance the population between building districts and growing enough food to grow the population. The map is a really special part of this game. This is an overview of it, and there are about 3 different layers to it: political, terrain, and then the kind of ground level view. The nice thing about the map is it's very 3-dimensional. There's a lot of different types of terrain to take into consideration, and they all have an impact as your units are running around. And as your units are running around, you're going to have lots of different types of encounters. Here's an enemy faction, and you obviously have the standard choices to engage with them or not, either diplomatically or through conflict. But there are lots of other types of encounters that you can have. Here's another smaller faction which have a similar kind of interaction where it can be diplomatic or it can be aggressive, but they'll also give you quests that you can undertake. And as I was running around experiencing these different types of quests, I never stumbled upon the same one twice, and as far as I can see, there were lots and lots of them, so I found that really unique. Talking about conflict though, you'll get a whole bunch of different types of heroes kind of as you go along, but also when you initially start. These heroes fulfill political roles and also combat roles, and they're kind of like almost RPG-esque, wherein you can find armour and weapons and trinkets for them out in the world, either by discovering them or through doing quests, and they'll give you different types of buffs when it comes to combat. I didn't get all the way into this in honesty, but I can see that clearly that's going to be a huge part of the game as it develops. When it comes to actual combat though, here's what it looks like from your perspective. When it commences, all of the built items vanish and you're left with the bare terrain to fight on. Now, I'm going to show you how I get my ass kicked here, but I thought that this could be a very clever tactic to use if you were smart about it. Because the individual terrain tiles negatively or positively impact your units, you could in theory pick a location which is beneficial to the types of units that you're actually running around on the map. So you could hide in the trees and get a buff for defense, and then if you could find some trees on top of a ridge, maybe you could get a height advantage as well. I actually think it's very clever the way that this has been implemented into the combat. And the combat itself is actually very intuitive. You've got standard ranged and melee and strengths and weaknesses against different types of units. It consists of rounds where you move and attack, and you can see who you're weak and you're strong against. It's all very fluid and nicely done, and the animations are great. I couldn't tell you whether or not it was balanced combat or not because I haven't had nearly enough fights yet, but I do know that the developers are currently working on that, so your mileage may vary. All in all, I've enjoyed my time in this, and I will continue to play it. In fact, there's a mystery that's at the end of the storyline that's supposed to entice you through the campaign, and I want to find out and get to the bottom of what all that's about. Does it have that one more turn feel to it? Yes, I think it does. Is it visually appealing? Yes. Is it slick and well polished? Yes. Do I find the factions and the world interesting enough to want to continue to play? Yes. I'm going to give this the Lord Barra seal of approval, because that's all I've got time for. So I'll just say, if you have been, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can let me know if you're interested in the comments below.